Bernie Sanders' campaign has been focusing a little more on drawing attention to the insane amount of harassment and abuse some of the women working on his campaign have received online. Now, the reason why they're doing this is because the conversation in the media has been dominated with this narrative that the Bernie Sanders campaign is somehow bullying people online. Now, there hasn't been a single example of that. You have the corporate media and people like Jennifer Rubin saying it without providing any examples. However, there have been specific examples of Nina Turner and Brianna Joy Gray, the national press secretary for Bernie Sanders, getting attacked, viciously so. Now, Nina Turner talks about that a little bit on MSNBC, which, as we know, has not been a very Bernie-friendly platform. Let's take a look.
Does Senator Sanders need to do more to speak out against some of his supporters who other people have said are crossing lines in that regard?
You know, every campaign has people that go too far, and the senator is exactly right. I mean, for me, the types of attacks, I couldn't even say the types of things that people have put out on social media because it would be so vulgar and inappropriate for daytime TV. Senator Sanders is standing up for the people on his campaign who are attacked. Bree Joy, for example, is national press secretary, attacked viciously all the time. Dr. Jane Sanders, his wife, attacked viciously all the time. People have a one-sided notion about this. They only talk about the supporters of Senator Sanders, or maybe the supporters. Anybody can be anybody on social media. The senator has said until he's blue in the face that he does not accept vicious attacks from people. But other folks don't talk about how other people come at people like me in this campaign in some of the most sexist, racist ways ever imaginable, and it is totally unacceptable.
So she's right, and anyone who's on Twitter has actually seen it. Anyone who's been on social media has seen it. But the Bernie camp, along with his supporters, have been hyper-focused on two things. Well, for Bernie's staffers, it's to push policy and specifically talk about how his policies differ from the other candidates, which is what you should do in a primary. And then they have to, unfortunately, waste their time defending him against smears that we've been seeing in the corporate media. When it comes to the voters, the supporters, they do both, actually, now that I think about it. They also want to talk about policy, but they find themselves having to defend Sanders against these unfair smears. But if you go to this archive, and there was an archive created by someone known as Ace Archivist or archivist. Is it archivist or archivist?
I think it's archivist.
Archivist, yeah, Ace Archivist.
Bart was an archivist, we should ask him.
And it keeps track of some of the abuse that Sanders campaign officials have been receiving. And it's titled Keep It Clean, an archive by Ace Archivist. And so we're gonna give you a few examples that we had to censor for obvious reasons. But just to show you, there was this one Twitter exchange where there's a photo of Nina Turner and Larry Sanders, and someone writes, they're both pieces of ish in my eyes, especially that loud, obnoxious hood rat on the right. Okay, so I mean.
So presumably we could go into Twitter, find that account and see who they support in the Democratic primary and then demand that candidate
answer
speak out again. Yeah, obviously they should, and we should ask about it over and over until they answer for it, and then keep asking anyway, over and over for the rest of time.
But one other person wrote, Nina Turner is Bernie's house slave, doing everything her master tells her to. It's disgusting. I wonder how much he's paying her. And then one other person wrote, don't forget, he also has Aunt Jemima, and they included an image of Bernie Sanders and Nina Turner. So look, this is, I don't think that this is indicative of the candidates that these disgusting people support.
How could it be?
This is what happens online, and I get it. It's abusive. I know firsthand how abusive it is, and it's disgusting. What's even more disgusting, though, is like being obtuse or pretending to not know that, and treating Bernie Sanders as if his supporters are unique in being extremely abusive online. That is just not the case. And by the way, oftentimes these are like anonymous accounts that don't have any identifying information.
Yeah.
We know that there are bad actors that are trying to rip the Democratic Party apart, that are trying to meddle in our elections. Why are we giving them this kind of power? Why are we empowering them by including them in this discussion like this?
It's ridiculous. I don't, like, it's nice every once in a while when you realize, I think that we have been entirely consistent about this. There are how many different candidates in this race that we didn't support? And have focused on even at times. We focused on Biden quite a bit. We're focusing on Bloomberg now. We focused on Buttigieg. Have we ever talked about something that one of their supporters tweeted, let alone made that the dominant narrative in a campaign?
So I think that from my experience, the most vociferous supporters have been those who supported Andrew Yang and Tulsi Gabbard. And some of them went so overboard that I had to block them, right? But the reason why I bring that up is because I don't think that reflects on Tulsi Gabbard.
Did you ever ask her to answer for it? I don't think that reflects
on Andrew Yang at all. No, I didn't.
Yeah, of course you didn't, because that would be crazy.
It is crazy.
That would be and it would be so disingenuous. And you just saw it there in the video. I mean, Bernie was asked and other people were asked, what, 4 questions about his supporters last night?
Yep.
And he denounced it, said they're not my real supporters. If they act like that, I don't want their, like he can say whatever he wants. The next day, so should he do more? Should he do more? That's the whole idea, is there's nothing he can do that would stop this concern trolling. There's nothing. It's designed to be unanswerable. Because
it's an easy strategy to deflect from policy and try to tank someone else's campaign. Now, in the case of Yang or Tulsi Gabbard, the reason why I didn't focus on their supporters and things that they say to me online is because I want to talk about their policies, right? I think that they're interesting candidates. They were interesting candidates. Well, I think Tulsi Gabbard's still in the race, but I think their policies are up for discussion and debate. That's what this whole process is supposed to be about. But when you're some corporate media hack and you don't want to do the hard work and the research and the real analysis into these policies, an easy way to smear a campaign or smear a candidate is to focus on anonymous randos on Twitter. It's disgusting and stupid.
I would be so embarrassed if I had had an interview with Andrew Yang, a bit like recently I did before, but
not a big deal. Yeah.
And I asked him, hey, a Yang ganger was mean to me. Do something about it. How pathetic and small would I be? And yes, abuse is terrible, and by its very nature has no connection to the candidate. There's nothing they could do to stop it, assuming that they are their supporters. And I'm assuming in the case of the Bernie abusers, some of them are probably bot networks that are actively trying to hurt him. Some of them are authentic person, because I know of people who supposedly support Bernie Sanders, but I think are genuinely terrible people. Those people exist. And in both of those cases, Bernie Sanders can't do anything about it.
Right, but
everyone knows that.
I also refuse to concede to that narrative that Bernie supporters are abusive, or most of them are, or even
well, I'm not saying that. I'm saying some people.
There might be yes, there might be a few people here and there, but overwhelmingly, from what I have seen online, they usually want to do rebuttals when someone lies about what Bernie Sanders stands for, what he said, or what his history is. And they don't like the fact that you have a swarm of Bernie supporters pointing out what the reality of the situation is. They hate it. They feel like they're being attacked, but that's not an attack. You're being corrected. And I get it. It might feel overwhelming if there's a lot of people at the same time. But abuse is very specific, and being corrected by many people simultaneously does not constitute or stand for abuse.
And my final thing is, the shock of these reporters to get pushback when they attack Bernie Sanders is not fundamentally Bernie Sanders as a politician's fault. It's the fault of every other politician, because these media people have gone years and years and years talking about a whole bunch of politicians that nobody really cares about. They don't have any authentic, genuine, passionate support. They've never had a crowd of people to defend them online because they're boring and they don't get anything done. Now we have politicians like Bernie Sanders that are doing something and thus have generated passionate support. Get used to it, I hope. Don't miss your chance to win a trip to Los Angeles and have dinner with Cenk, Anna, and me. Just head to tyt.com/dinner in LA to register to win. Sign up for a free Aspiration Spend and Save account. Register your eligibility. Swipe your Aspiration card on daily purchases to gain entries to win a chance to fly to LA and have dinner with the TYT hosts. Not only are you entering to win that dinner in LA with Cenk and Anna and myself, but you're also able to deposit your hard-earned money without it going towards fossil fuel exploration or production. And as a friendly reminder, even if you already have an Aspiration account, you must still first register to be eligible for the sweepstakes.